Usually when we talk about opening up a new channel for customer communication, we kind of picture it like opening a floodgate.
Oh, for sure. It's terrifying for most brands.
Right. Like you're standing at the bottom of this massive concrete dam, looking up, and you just know the second you turn that valve, you are going to get washed away.
Washed away by just a torrent of unstructured, chaotic demands.
Exactly. And I mean, when you look at the data, and this is wild, it's estimated that 19.3% of U.S. online sales will be returned in 2025.
Which is basically 1 in 5 orders.
Right. Nearly 1 in 5 orders coming back. So giving customers a button to just initiate that process on their own, well, it feels like handing them the sledgehammer to break the dam.
It feels incredibly risky. I mean, merchants, we like our dams closed.
Yeah, we like the illusion of control.
Exactly. We like controlling the flow of water or, in this case, the flow of customer requests and inventory. We really want to be the gatekeepers.
But then you look at the reality of modern e-commerce, and the truth is that dam is already leaking. I mean, your customer service inbox, if you're listening to this right now, is probably full of those exact requests.
Oh, absolutely overflow.
Just constant emails like, cancel my order, I picked the wrong size, or I need to send this back, it doesn't fit.
And every single one of those emails is just so vague.
So vague. And each one requires you to manually search for an order, figure out the shipping status, make a policy decision, and then manually click through this whole multi-step refund process.
It is the absolute definition of operational quicksand.
It really is.
And, the administrative hours lost to that quicksand aren't trivial at all. Which actually brings us to the mission of our deep dive today.
Yes, let's get into it.
We are looking at this highly detailed 25-minute guide from August 2026. It's titled Shopify Returns and Cancellations, What to Switch On.
Good title. Straight to the point. Yeah.
Right. And we're going to demystify Shopify's self-serve returns and cancellations features for you. We'll basically map out the mechanics of what you actually need to switch on and how to avoid some really devastating hidden traps.
Like promising things you can't deliver.
Exactly, like accidentally promising a refund timeline your warehouse physically cannot deliver. And we'll also cover how to navigate these incredibly strict international consumer laws.
Oh, man, the legal stuff is wild. We'll get to that.
Yeah, you might be violating laws simply because of how a single button is labeled on your site.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we turn on any settings in Shopify, we really have to address the elephant in the room, right?
The fear of losing control.
Exactly. The biggest fear merchants have is that self-serve inherently means losing control. There's this pervasive anxiety that giving a customer a button on your website means they can directly intervene and just wreak havoc on your fulfillment process.
And that is the great misconception, really. It stems from a complete misunderstanding of how the software architecture actually handles these inputs.
How so? What are people picturing?
Well, merchants picture this scenario where, an order is picked, packed, and it's literally sitting on the loading dock at 4:00 p.m. on a Friday.
The worst time.
Right. And then the customer just casually clicks a button on their phone, magically cancels the whole thing, alters the database, and leaves the warehouse team completely in the dark while the physical box still gets loaded onto a truck.
That is exactly the nightmare scenario. You've essentially given the customer an emergency brake to stop the shipping truck right from their couch.
But that is fundamentally not how this feature is built. Not at all.
Okay, so what actually happens when they click it?
A customer request from the front end does not automatically change an order's financial or fulfillment state on the back end. It just doesn't. Both request types returns and cancellations are exactly that. They're just requests.
So they're just intake forms, basically.
They are intake forms.
So having these buttons isn't like giving the customer an emergency brake to stop the shipping truck. It's more like a highly organized digital suggestion box.
Precisely. That's a perfect analogy. The request lands in a specific queue inside your admin panel.
And it has all the info already there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's native to the platform, it arrives naturally attached to the specific order profile. It names the exact product variants the customer wants to cancel or return, and then it just waits.
It waits for a human.
It waits for you, the merchant, to act on it. You still hold all the cards. You approve or decline every single one.
It's a huge relief.
And furthermore, the system rules for what they can even put in that suggestion box are completely mutually exclusive based on the fulfillment state.
Wait, meaning what?
Meaning cancellation requests only apply to unshipped items. Return requests only apply to fulfilled items.
Oh, so they can't mess it up.
Right. The system literally won't let them mix it up. If it's shipped, they can't ask to cancel it.
Wow, just thinking about the mental bandwidth that frees up is huge. I mean, instead of trying to decipher some panicked email sent at 2:00 a.m. from an address that, doesn't even match their customer account.
Which happens all the time.
All the time. The system basically does all that data entry for you. But this does raise a practical question for me.
Sure.
Let's say a cancellation request lands in the queue, right? But your warehouse has already slapped the label on it and it's on a pallet. You have to say no. How does that workflow actually operate without making you look like the bad guy to the customer?
Well, the workflow for denying a cancellation is actually built with some clever nuance. You don't just have one blunt, no button.
Okay, what are the options?
You have two distinct operational paths, depending on the context. First, there is decline request.
Which I assume just rejects it outright.
Yeah, it formally declines it in the system and triggers an automated email to the customer explaining the decision. But the alternative is a button called Mark as Resolved.
Ooh, let me guess. Mark as Resolved is like the stealth option. It closes the ticket without alerting the customer.
Exactly. It quietly closes the request internally. The order state remains active, and crucially, it bypasses that automated email system entirely.
That is brilliant for, like, omni-channel support. Oh, it's a lifesaver.
Because imagine a customer panics, hits the cancel request button on your site, but then they immediately DM your brand on Instagram saying, wait, never mind, I want to keep it. My sister actually loves that color.
Right, they change their mind constantly.
Yeah, so you handle the conversation there in the DMs, you calm them down, and then you just hop into Shopify and hit Mark as Resolved.
Yep.
It clears your queue without triggering some confusing, contradictory automated email that says their cancellation was denied when you just told them on Instagram it was fine.
Exactly. It keeps your internal data clean without muddying the customer experience. Now, for returns, I should mention the mechanism is slightly different.
How so?
If you decline a return request, you are forced to pick an internal decline reason for your own analytics.
Like what?
Things like item damaged or past return window, stuff the customer never sees. But you are required to write a custom message that gets emailed to them. You can't just stealth close a return.
Okay, that makes sense. You have to explain why you won't take their product back. Right. But the overarching theme here is that you maintain total authority over the final outcome.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Now that we've established the emergency brake isn't real, how exactly do we build this organized digital suggestion box?
The implementation part.
Yeah, because merchants often poke around their admin panel looking for like a single master return switch. And according to the source material, that simply doesn't exist.
It doesn't, because the feature is entirely modular. You have to conceptualize it as two distinct layers: activation and rules.
Activation and rules. Okay.
Think of the activation layer as building the physical suggestion box itself, putting it on your counter, and deciding if you're taking slips of paper today.
And the rules layer.
The rules layer is putting a sign on that box telling people what specific criteria those slips of paper must meet to even be looked at.
Okay, so let's look at the activation layer first. Where does that actually live in the platform?
It lives in your settings, specifically under customer accounts. This is the master switch for the interface itself. You decide if customers get to see the request buttons at all.
And what are the options there?
You have three modes: return and cancel requests, return requests only, or cancel requests only.
And it's my understanding that this is an all or nothing deal across your entire customer base, right? Like, you can't dynamically turn it on for your direct-to-consumer retail shoppers, but then hide it from your B2B wholesale clients.
That's the reality of the current architecture, yes.
Okay.
It applies globally to all orders. In fact, on B2B orders, both the individual customer who placed the order and the company's location admin can use those exact same buttons.
Okay, so that covers the activation.
Right, in the second layer, the rules, lives in a completely different place. Settings under policies.
Oh, policies. Okay.
This is where you set the actual parameters, the time windows, the fees, the specific exceptions. But the crucial detail here is that those rules only police the incoming requests if the activation layer is turned on.
Right. The box has to be on the counter first.
Exactly. You can have the most beautifully detailed return rules in the world configured in your policies, but if that activation switch is off, the customer sees absolutely nothing.
Okay, but bringing up the customer accounts setting brings up, honestly, the biggest roadblock I hear about constantly from established brands, the migration myth.
Ah, yes, the migration panic.
Merchants look at this feature, they see it requires Shopify's quote-unquote new customer accounts system, and they just freeze.
They panic.
They assume they have to completely tear down their existing login infrastructure, rebuild their entire checkout flow, and crucially, lose their custom Liquid templates.
Which is the underlying code that runs their store's specific branded design, yeah.
Right. They think they have to basically halt all business for a quarter just to migrate to a whole new system before they can offer a simple return button.
Which is a completely understandable fear when you're talking about core site infrastructure, right?
Mhm.
But as the August 2026 guide explicitly points out, it is entirely false.
It's a total myth.
Total myth. You do not need to rebuild your whole login system today just to leverage this feature today.
I suspected there had to be a workaround. Walk us through how you bypass that, because this is huge for anyone listening who has been putting this project off for months.
Okay, so the source material clarifies this vital technical distinction in Shopify's requirements. Giving customers access to the portal powered by the new customer account system is a prerequisite, yes.
Okay.
But you can provide that access simply by taking the specific URL for the new customer accounts and just adding it as a hyperlink in your store's footer.
Wait, really? Just a link?
Just a link.
Yeah.
Or you can embed it directly in the text of your written return policy page.
So you're not migrating your entire house, you're just building a side door that leads directly to the returns desk.
That is the exact mechanism. You can seamlessly continue using your legacy customer accounts for your actual online store browsing, your custom Liquid designs, and your normal checkout experience.
And the returns portal is just its own thing.
Yes, the new system just acts as an isolated, standalone portal specifically for submitting these requests.
Wow.
Now, if you want to do a full migration later to get advanced features like Multipass, which is Shopify's enterprise single sign-on, or integrate specific loyalty apps onto the account pages, you totally can.
But you don't have to do it today.
Absolutely not. It is absolutely not a technical roadblock for turning on self-serve returns this afternoon.
That is such a relief. So, okay, we've got the side door open, the buttons are active. Now we have to decide how wide to open the window of opportunity for the customer.
The time windows.
Let's tackle cancellations first, because this is where merchants, usually with the absolute best of intentions, end up accidentally lying to their customers.
Yeah, the cancellation rules in the policy settings are very rigid. You were given 5 specific values to choose from. There was no custom duration slider here at all.
What are the options?
You have no cancellations, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 24 hours, and finally a setting called until item is fulfilled.
Okay, I have to push back here, because if I'm building a brand based on, like, premium hospitality, isn't offering a fixed 24-hour cancellation window just good customer service?
He sounds good on paper.
Right. It sounds generous. It acts as a safety net. Why wouldn't I give my buyer a full 24 hours to change their mind?
Because offering a fixed time duration is a mechanical promise that you can only keep if your physical fulfillment process is guaranteed to be slower than that clock.
Okay, explain that.
Think about the physical reality of your operations. Let's say your warehouse team or your third-party logistics provider is highly efficient.
Which you want them to be.
Right. And they routinely pick, pack, and generate a shipping label for an order in, let's say, 2 hours.
Okay.
But your front-end website proudly advertises a 24-hour cancellation window. What happens?
Oh, the customer logs in at hour 12, feeling completely entitled to cancel because my policy explicitly says they can. They hit the button
And you are forced to tell them, sorry, we already put it on the truck.
ouch, yeah, that's terrible.
It's awful. You gave them an interface element that mechanically cannot help them. It creates this deeply frustrating customer experience because it's built on a false promise.
And then they're mad at you, even though you shipped it fast.
Exactly. This is why the guide heavily advocates for ignoring those time-based options entirely and selecting the until item is fulfilled setting.
Because that metric is actually tethered to the physical state of the inventory rather than some arbitrary countdown clock.
It is the only truly honest metric. If you ship in 2 hours, the window closes in 2 hours. But it closes by itself, automatically, at the exact moment the item actually stops being cancelable in reality.
So the button just goes away.
The button simply vanishes for the customer.
Yeah.
You aren't advertising a vanity metric you can't honor.
That makes total sense. Form follows function. But even if you use that honest metric, there is still scenarios where the Shopify admin backend will just flat out refuse to let you process a cancellation, right? The guide lists some serious roadblocks.
Oh yes, there are absolute systemic ceilings where the software just protects itself. The most common one is partially fulfilled orders.
How does that happen?
Well, if even one single item in a multi-item order has been marked as shipped, say you split the shipment because a shirt was in stock but the shoes were on back order, The system completely locks you out of canceling the remaining unfulfilled items via the standard flow.
Seriously? It just locks it.
Completely. You have to either manually cancel the existing fulfillment first, which is really messy, or bypass the system and issue a manual refund.
That sounds annoying. What else blocks it? You also cannot cancel orders that are sitting in a pending payment state with scheduled payments.
Okay, what about social commerce? Because so many brands rely heavily on native checkout directly on Instagram or Facebook now.
Ah, that introduces cross-platform API issues.
Sounds complicated.
It can be. If an order was placed natively through Meta's checkout, and then your team previously edited that order inside the Facebook Commerce Manager, which is Meta's backend for managing those sales, Shopify locks the order on their end. Why? To prevent them from overwriting each other.
Exactly. To prevent conflicting data states, you have to go back into Commerce Manager to make any further changes.
Okay, but here is the most crucial stop what you're doing warning from the entire source document. It honestly gave me anxiety just reading it. Bulk cancellations?
Ah, yes. The double refund trap.
I need you to explain the mechanism here,
Okay.
because refunding people twice sounds absolutely devastating for cash flow. Why on earth does the system do this?
It comes down to how the platform handles background processing during bulk actions. When you try to cancel multiple orders at once by, checking boxes in the admin list view, the system has to rapidly calculate the refund payloads for all of those disparate orders simultaneously.
Okay, so it's doing a lot of math all at once.
Right. And because of that heavy API load, the standard confirmation modal that usually pops up and asks, do you want to refund this payment right now, might fail to render.
Wait, it just skips the pop-up.
Yes. And when that prompt doesn't display, Shopify defaults to immediate execution. It fires off the refunds for every single selected order instantly.
Oh my God.
And the extreme danger here is that this batch might include orders that your customer service staff already manually refunded earlier in the day.
So because the system didn't give you the checkbox to pause the money movement, it just fires off the cash again.
It triggers duplicate financial processing.
That is terrifying.
It is. The strict operational guidance from the source is to cancel orders individually, one by one, whenever you need to utilize the later refund option, or if there's any chance whatsoever that someone else on your team might have already touched that order's finances.
Note to self, never check all the boxes.
Okay.
Okay, so we managed to catch the package before it left the dock. But inevitably, things do ship. And once that box leaves your warehouse and hits the customer's porch, the rules of gravity completely change. Let's talk about returns.
A whole different ballgame.
Because managing a product coming backward through the supply chain requires a completely different set of rules. We basically have 4 primary dials here. The window duration, where the window starts, the return shipping cost, and the restocking fee.
Right. And it's important to note that customers see the results of these dials much earlier than you might think.
Like when they're browsing.
More like when they initiate the process. For example, if you configure a restocking fee, that isn't just a hidden back-end calculation. That percentage is prominently displayed to the customer right when they go to request the return in the portal.
Which actually introduces an interesting psychological element, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about recovering the $5 it costs for your team to inspect and, polybag a returned shirt. It acts as behavioral friction.
Oh, absolutely.
It forces the buyer to pause and calculate if returning the item is actually worth the financial hit, which cuts down on frivolous serial returning.
It makes them think twice.
Exactly. But let's look at the where the window starts style, because this one is fascinating to me. You can choose items delivery or delivery of last item in order.
This is a critical logistics decision for any store that utilizes split shipments.
Okay, run through a scenario for us.
Sure. If a customer orders 3 distinct items, and due to inventory location, they arrive in 3 separate boxes on, let's say, a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday.
Very common.
Very common. If you choose items delivery, it means you are initiating 3 entirely separate 30-day return countdown clocks for a single unified order.
That sounds like an absolute nightmare for a customer service rep to track.
It is.
Well, you can return the shirt, but the shoes miss their specific window by 12 hours.
It creates completely unnecessary friction and arguments with the customer. Setting the dial to delivery of last item in order means the entire purchase shares one single clean deadline that only begins ticking when the final box is confirmed delivered.
Much cleaner.
It vastly simplifies the mental model for both the buyer and your staff.
Okay, let's talk about shipping labels, because the interface makes it look like you can just check a box that says offer free return shipping and instantly become Amazon.
Oh, if only it were that easy.
Right. Knowing how carrier integrations work, I'm assuming that only applies if you're shipping domestically.
You nailed it. It reads like a very simple policy decision on the screen, but it's bound by severe technical limitations. If you rely natively on Shopify shipping to auto-generate those return labels for the customer, you need to know that those integrations, the API deals with USPS, UPS, all of them, are natively limited to U.S. domestic orders.
So if you have a customer in Toronto or even a U.S. military APO address overseas,
You are completely on your own. The system cannot generate the label.
wow, what do you do then?
You have to manually source and fund that international shipping label outside of Shopify shipping. You either work directly with a global carrier portal, or you have to integrate a robust third-party returns app.
So free returns is a powerful marketing hook, but you really have to understand the geographic limitations of your base software before you advertise it.
Exactly.
We also have to address final sale, because a lot of merchants assume that if they sell customized items like personalized jewelry or even digital downloads like PDFs, Shopify's architecture will just automatically know those can't be returned and will block the request.
That is a very dangerous assumption regarding how the database categorizes products.
So it doesn't know.
Because digital goods don't have a universal native tag in Shopify's base architecture that completely isolates them from the fulfillment engine, the system defaults to treating them like physical inventory when it comes to return eligibility.
Oh man. So they can just ask to return a PDF they already downloaded.
Yes, digital goods and personalized products are not automatically exempted from the cancellation or return flows. You have to manually build the fences by adding those specific products or collections to your final sale exceptions list.
And the guide makes a massive point about bundles, too. If you are trying to clear out dead stock by grouping it together and slapping a no returns label on it, the system natively cannot enforce final sale rules on bundle products.
It just can't read them properly.
Right. You have to manage that entirely manually.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, all of these granular settings ultimately come down to understanding the reality of the financial state versus the physical state of the item. Which brings us to a vital distinction: the difference between voided and refunded.
Oh, this trips up so many accountants when they are trying to reconcile the books at the end of the month.
Because merchants tend to casually assume canceled is a single unified financial outcome.
Right, like canceled means canceled.
But it isn't. If you cancel an order before you ever capture the payment, say during a fraud hold, the financial status is voided.
Meaning no money actually moved.
Right. No actual money moved between banks, and crucially, there are no credit card processing fees to write off. But if you captured the funds at checkout, and then you cancel it 3 days later, it becomes refunded.
Because the money was actually taken, processed, and then a new transaction had to send it back.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for the trickiest state? Partially refunded.
Well, remember how we established earlier that saying yes to a cancellation request simply means removing the unshipped items from the order?
Right.
Removing the physical items is only step 1. Actually, processing the return of the funds is step 2. If you remove the items from the invoice but tell the system you will refund the money later, the order sits in a partially refunded state.
Just waiting.
And the cancellation request stays fully visible on the order page as this nagging reminder until you actually push the cash back to the customer's card. A canceled order and a fully refunded order are not synonymous until you complete both the physical and the financial steps.
Okay, we've dialed in our time windows. We understand the financial mechanics. But what happens when a customer isn't in your domestic market? What if they are in the European Union, where consumer protections aren't just like store policies you write on a FAQ page, but strict, heavily enforced international laws?
This is the compliance minefield. It really is. The activation switch for self-serve returns is global. You can't turn it on for the US but hide the buttons from shoppers in France.
It's all or nothing.
Now, the Argus 2026 guide notes that market-specific return rules were in early access at the time, meaning some merchants could theoretically let different windows for different countries.
But if you don't have that early access feature yet, how do you actually implement a policy that doesn't get you sued by the EU?
You have to play to the lowest common denominator. Your default global policy must honor the widest, most generous statutory rule required by any of your buyers.
Wow.
And if you have even occasional buyers in the EU, that means bowing to Directive 2011-83 EU.
The famous right of withdrawal.
Exactly. By law, EU consumers have an unconditional right to withdraw from a distance contract within 14 days for any reason.
But wait, when does that 14 days start?
That's the kicker. For physical goods, the critical mechanism is that this 14-day clock starts from the moment of physical receipt by the consumer, not from the date of the transaction.
Oh, wow. So shipping time doesn't count against them.
Nope. This is why Shopify explicitly recommends setting your global return window to a minimum of 14 days and using that delivery of last item in order setting we talked about, simply to ensure EU compliance.
And what about cancellations before it ships?
For cancellations, they strongly advise using until item is fulfilled to honor those pre-shipment withdrawal rights.
And that's just the policy logic. But the guide highlights a terrifying new interface requirement that went into effect on June 19, 2026. This isn't just about how many days they have. It dictates how your actual website interface must look and function.
Yes, this is an update under Directive 2023-2673. It requires e-commerce stores to have a continuously available, highly visible withdrawal function. It cannot be buried in a block of text in your terms of service.
It has to be a real button.
It must be prominently labeled on the site, and the law actually suggests the highly specific wording, withdraw from contract here, or something unambiguously similar.
So you can't just use a generic help or support button and expect them to figure it out.
No, that flat out fails compliance.
Uh-huh.
And the technical requirements get even more complex. The law demands a two-step confirmation process where the customer actively confirms the withdrawal and inputs their name and order details.
Oh, man.
Plus, your system must immediately fire off an automatic confirmation of the request on a durable medium, which in e-commerce translates to an automated email receipt. You can fail this compliance check and face penalties even if all your Shopify time windows are set perfectly, simply because your front-end interface doesn't meet the rigid legal standard for clarity.
And the penalties for getting this wrong are wild. I was reading this section on failing to inform the consumer. If you mess up the button labeling or the communication, that standard 14-day statutory return window doesn't just bump up to 30 days. It automatically extends to 12 months and 14 days.
Imagine being legally forced to accept a return on a year-old worn sweater simply because your portal button said help instead of withdraw.
That is insane.
And the financial risk scales up dramatically. For widespread infringements that affect consumers across multiple member states, EU enforcement agencies can coordinate to levy fines of up to 4% of your annual turnover.
4% of total revenue. That elevates this entire conversation. Self-serve returns are no longer just a neat, optional customer service tool to save your reps some time. It is a strict legal compliance framework.
Which is exactly why the implementation strategy laid out in the guide is so absolutely critical.
Which brings us to the bottom line. The source guide lays out a very specific golden rule, an absolute order of operations for how to turn all of this on without breaking your business. Step 1. You must identify and sign the human being who will actually monitor and work the digital queue first.
Yes. You have to establish the human workflow before you introduce the technology.
Step 2. You choose the time windows and rules in the backend based entirely on what your warehouse and fulfillment team can actually honor in physical reality.
Not what sounds nice on paper.
Right. And Step 3. You write your public-facing publish policy last, basing the text entirely on what the admin is configured to do. If you do it backward, if you write a wonderfully generous policy first but never assign anyone to check the queue, the whole system collapses, and you end up declining requests that you publicly promised you would accept.
This raises an important question, though, as we look toward the future of e-commerce operations. We spent this entire deep dive talking about how this supposedly automated system is still fundamentally reliant on a human being.
Very reliant.
Right. A human has to review the queue to prevent those double refunds. A human has to manually flag the architectural exceptions for digital goods. And a human has to ensure your interface isn't violating EU consumer laws.
It's a digital suggestion box, but a person still has to sit there and read the suggestions every morning.
Precisely. So with the rapid advancement of technology in this space, how long will it be until we see AI agents natively integrated directly into these specific Shopify admin queues?
Oh, wow.
Imagine an AI that instantly pre-vets every single cancellation or return request against your live inventory state, analyzes your historical refund data for fraud, and cross-references the specific regional consumer laws of the buyer's IP address, all before a human ever even has to click approve or decline.
That would change everything. The dam wouldn't just be controlled. The water would be filtering itself before it even hit the gate. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If your inbox is currently overflowing with return requests, maybe it's time to check your settings, figure out your order of operations, and finally take back control of your day. Until next time.